Good Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock and time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for the opener down in Carolina Sunday at 1 o'clock. It will be the beginning of Jacoby Brissett's 11 games as the Browns starting quarterback. Brissett didn't play a lot in the preseason, has had those 2 weeks that between the final preseason game and this first regular season game. Brissett getting more and more comfortable in the Browns offense.
It's very important. Kevin's been preaching to us. Got to make sure we come out and get off to a fast start. And this is our first one, so we got to be ready to go. We know they're going to be ready to go. I think everybody's emotions will be high because it is the first game of the season. We got to do a really good job of controlling ours and sticking to our fundamentals and technique and playing good football.
There is a lot of buzz, obviously, versus Baker and all that kind of stuff. What role can you play in doing what you just talked about and kind of keeping those emotions contained?
I think it's the Browns versus the Panthers, and that's just what it is. It's nameless, faceless opponents. I think I've grown, but still more room for improvement. Obviously, a new week, a new opponent that present different problems and things that we have to take care of. So looking forward to it.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Tim, Jacoby Brissett, first start for the Browns. They need to play well.
Yeah, no question about it. And not just he needs to play well. He needs the rest of his team to really play well, particularly the running game with the offensive line in front of Jacoby Brissett, with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Those two haven't played in the preseason. And I think that's the big thing I think people need to kind of remember from, Jacoby Brissett in that third preseason game. I know he threw a lot, didn't look great, but I think we had to remember that he threw a ton in the first half of the preseason game, probably as much as you're going to see him throw on an average game. And I feel like that's part of me believes that's by design, just to get him used to passing reps, used to throwing in live reps in the structure of the offense. Now that we get into game situations, you're going to get more of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and I would imagine those two are going to get a bulk of carries. And I think the key for this game, more than some others, is this team is with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, you want to get the lead. And I think the reason for that is if you're the Browns, the big key is you want to put the game in the hands of Baker Mayfield as much as possible and see if he can win it for them. And of course, maybe the reason they do that is because he has historically struggled in those situations, particularly last season.
Yeah. Well, Nick Chubb, we've talked about it, did not play in the preseason. A man of few words. Here is what Nick Chubb had to say, what he has seen from Jacoby Brissett.
He's been amazing. He's awesome. He's a great vet. He knows pretty much any questions we have, and he's a great leader, and he directs us around like he's been here for a long time, and I'm excited to play with him.
And again, there hasn't been a lot of chemistry because a lot of the guys, Chubb, Hunt, Cooper, Bitonio, haven't played at all in the preseason. So that they got to get acclimated.
Yeah, definitely. They've had plenty of reps in the preseason, mini camp, training camp, to really kind of get acclimated to one another to an extent. But there's only so much you could do in practices or in the preseason games. You don't really get that experience until the regular season when these games count and when teams are game planning against you, and when you're going 100% far more than you would in the preseason. So there's going to be pressure on them, obviously, to kind of get off to a good start, to look good, because of all the games on the schedule, this is the one the Browns really can't afford to lose, just because of all the negativity they've been dealing with, some of which they brought on themselves with the Deshaun Watson trade. And in some ways, I think Jacoby Brissett is the ideal guy to lead him through it. He's a consummate professional. He's been around the league a few times, knows how to prepare like a professional, and he seems pretty even keel, which I think you kind of need to navigate a situation like this. So I think they should be able to find a way to at least be able to move the football, score some points on the Carolina Panthers, who are a decent young defense, but not an elite young defense. So I think there should be opportunities for Brissett, Cooper, Njoku, and company to make some things happen.
All right, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Week 1 and some challenges for the Browns.
Hey guys, I was just wondering, with the Browns coming to Carolina this week, I think our defense should honestly look really well. But in terms of the offense, dudes like Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Jacoby Brissett, they haven't taken a real game snap yet together. I was just wondering how you see that potentially affecting the Browns offense and maybe resulting in a slow start. Thank you, though. I appreciate all the content.
Yeah, and again, it has to be a concern because the Browns do not want to play from behind with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback.
Exactly. And I mean, it wouldn't be shocking if they fell behind again early just because, these guys haven't played together in games. And I mean, it would be the same thing if Desean Watson were starting in this game. It's just a matter of a lot of new pieces coming together. Amari Cooper has never played a game in this system. Jacoby Brissett and Desean Watson, neither have played a regular season game in Kevin Stefanski's offense. David Bell has never played in an NFL game, et cetera, et cetera. So no question about it. There's going to be an adjustment period for the Browns. It's just kind of as simple as how do you minimize, that those adjustments that need to be made? How do you minimize, when things don't look as crisp and what are the things they can do right away to look cohesive, to move the ball the way that they're capable of doing? And I think the answer to that, again, is coming from the ground game. I mean, we've seen that be a huge thing for them the last couple of seasons. It's going to need to be even more so, these first 11 games.
Yeah, without question. This is from Pro Football Focus. Myles Garrett, 93.1 career pass rush grade. The highest among edge defenders since 2017. The reason I bring that up, he is going to go against the first-round pick of the Carolina Panthers, tackle Ekwonu, and they really need Myles Garrett to kind of wreck the game plan of the Carolina Panthers. If you're drawing up something that would help the Browns, Myles Garrett creating havoc against the rookie left tackle is high on the list.
Absolutely. I think the defense playing well as a whole is going to be key to staying afloat in these 11 games, winning 6 or possibly even 7 of these games. It's going to be massive just to have this defense play as well as they need to, and probably that they're capable of playing. And I think with Myles Garrett, this is about as good a situation as you could hope for, going up against Ikem Ekwonu, who, while he is a very talented, promising rookie, still a rookie, never had to go up against a guy like Myles Garrett or Jadeveon Clowney. And I mean, I know the Carolina Panthers have a good edge rusher themselves in Brian Burns. He's been probably certainly giving Ekwonu plenty of work in practices or whatever, but I think Myles Garrett is pretty much on a different level. He's definitely in that elite tier of pass rushers, co-favored for Defensive Player of the Year this season. I think there's certainly the possibility that he can really have a dominant role in this game. I don't know if he could be as dominant as he was against the Bears in week 3 of last season when I believe he had four sacks in one game. I don't know if he can do that, but if he can have as close to that kind of impact and as well as the rest of the defense doing their jobs, it could certainly make things easier. And I think that's the big thing in this matchup. I know Baker Mayfield obviously has familiarity with the Browns defense and vice versa. The big thing is that Baker Mayfield does not have the offensive line that he had in Cleveland. The Browns had one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, obviously, when healthy. Injuries took a lot of the sting out, a lot of the talent out of that offensive line. The one he has in Carolina, obviously, you got Ekwonu, who's very promising, but there's a lot of question marks on that front. It's not nearly as good as what he had in Cleveland.
All right, let's take a look at some national picks for the Browns-Panthers game. Pete Prisco from CBS Sports. Panthers beat the Browns 23-17. Mayfield has a lot of skilled talent around him, and the Panthers' young defense will be improved. Carolina wins it. Mayfield beats his old team. Okay. NFL Network, Week 1 picks. And you look at that. There's 10 of them. 8 of them have the Panthers winning. Some of them by as much as 17 points. Maurice Jones-Drew, one of the only analysts that has the Browns winning. And Tim, I know we talked earlier, I know you picked the Panthers. I got to believe if the Browns hold Carolina to 21 points, they're going to find a way to score 21, 24 points. I think it's going to be something along the lines of 24-21, 24-17. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I picked Carolina, and probably maybe failed reasoning in some way, but I have a hard time picking the Browns to win an opener, considering they haven't won one since 2004. And considering there are basically very few, if any, players outside of Tom Brady that were in the NFL the last time the Browns won an opener, makes it almost impossible to want to pick them until they actually do. So I look at just, the way they can certainly come out and play at his best. At his best, we've seen him just light defenses up. We've seen just how motivated he could play, for example, against teams like Cincinnati. He clearly didn't forget the whole Hugh Jackson thing, and he was absolutely tremendous against him, particularly, in that game in 2021 after the Browns moved on from Odell Beckham Jr. and he helped lead them to a shocking blowout win in Cincinnati. We thought that was going to be the turnaround of the season. Turns out it wasn't. But I think when you look at the quarterback matchup, there's no question that the better quarterback is Baker Mayfield. The quarterback who's got the better chance to impact the game, in a positive way, I think is Baker, because at his best, he could be elite. The question is, which Baker Mayfield is going to show up. Is he going to be, fired up in the right way, with guys like Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore to really help him out and to make some good plays? Or is he going to be the bad kind of motivator where, he's trying way too hard. He's pressing kind of at times we saw last season, holding onto the ball too long, trying to make the spectacular play instead of the right play. And then that would play into the Browns' hands. So that, I think, is going to be the biggest thing that tips this game one way or the other. Now, obviously, if the Browns could control the game with the ground game, if Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, maybe Dearness Johnson, if those guys can get something going on the ground, they can control the clock, get some touchdowns, make things easier for Jacoby Brissett, certainly have the potential to win. I mean, the Browns on paper have the more talented roster than the Carolina Panthers, obviously not at the most important position, but, everywhere else, it's hard to look at those rosters, look at the depth, and not say that the Browns don't have advantages in most of those spots.
Yeah, and it's fair to say that Jacoby Brissett, as the backup quarterback, is the reason that many of the national media think that the Panthers are going to win. Brissett was asked about how the media views the Browns with him as the quarterback.
Jacoby, do you find it motivating at all that it seems like maybe nationally and even locally people seem to have dialed back the expectations for the team with Desean being out for 11 games? I mean, does that light any kind of an extra fire under you?
I haven't heard anything, so I don't really care, to be honest. Sorry.
But do you make a point of not
caring? Yeah.
It's exactly what he should do. I mean, that's the mindset of a guy that's been around a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think the term game manager comes with a lot of negative connotation. They think of him as guys who aren't going to win football games for you. They're not going to, throw a lot of touchdowns. And in some ways in the NFL, that's what you need. Is you need a guy who's going to go win you games as a quarterback. You need a guy who's going to be a difference maker through the air, control the game with his eyes and his arm, sometimes his legs. Those are things you expect from a quarterback. And those, more often than not, those are the quarterbacks that win those games and, go off and do big things in the season, possibly even in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But I think with Jacoby Brissett, he's at least savvy enough as a veteran. He understands what has to be done. He's got plenty of experience. He knows how to kind of control a football game. It's going to be rarer than he makes mistakes. He may not make those high risk plays that you would see out of Baker, for example, or Deshaun Watson, but he's going to just find the open guy and get him the football. And basically he's kind of needing to be the point guard and trust that you have enough talent in the skill positions where if they can catch a 2-yard pass, they could turn it into 20 yards or something like that. That was a problem I think the Browns had throughout Baker Mayfield's tenure. The question is if they fixed it enough by adding Amari Cooper and, giving David Njoku a bigger role as the number one tight end. Gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think Jacoby's the kind of quarterback who needs help to win, and I think that's where some of the negative connotation comes from.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, talk a little bit about Baker Mayfield. We'll hear from Kevin Stefanski on Baker. We'll also hear from Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
The
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns. We want you to leave us voicemails, predict the score, and what the key stat of the game will be for Week 1 against the Panthers. We'll use some of those on Friday. Right now, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Week 1 against the Panthers.
All right, Dan from Youngstown. There's a lot of naysayers out here. They want to see Baker beat us, but guess what? It's all on Stefanski. Okay, no more excuses. It's time for him to make sure that we beat Carolina and beat Baker, okay? No more excuses, Stefanski. I don't want to see no more end around with Anthony Swartz, being predictable. Come on, man. Just beat him. And Joe Woods, go after Baker. Let JOK loose and let Delpit loose. They're going to try to double and triple team Miles and Clowney. So, come on, man. Let it all out. Your thoughts. Thanks for taking my call. Love the show.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Tim, I'm with that. I want to see him get after Baker Mayfield. I want to see him pressured.
Yeah, I mean, not many teams, if any, know Baker Mayfield better than the Browns. And I know Joe Woods doesn't always blitz a lot. I think it'd be a wise thing of him to go into the playbook of, former Michigan defensive coordinator Don Brown and blitz. And I think, maybe not as much as he would do, or, former Ravens defensive coordinator Wink Martindale would do, where they would blitz heavily. But I think you got to bring a lot of extra pressure at Baker. You got to really be able to disguise looks, show 6, maybe even 7 on the line of scrimmage, and just kind of make it so he doesn't know where everything's coming from, because we know from the past couple seasons that he has some difficulties reading the field, and he has had issues in the past few years playing against the blitz. And when pressure gets in his face, sometimes he'll throw off his back foot. And when that happens, that's an opportunity. That's potentially an opportunity for someone like Denzel Ward or John Johnson or Grant Delpit to step in front of one of those passes and pick it off. And, we've seen how much the turnovers hurt Baker Mayfield throughout his career. That's going to be the key, is can the Browns defense force turnovers against Baker Mayfield? He'll certainly hit a couple plays because, he's got the arm talent to hit a couple plays, and he's got the skill players to get those things done. But the key is, can you turn him over? Can you affect him with pressure? And can you make him throw before he wants to? If you could do those things, if you're the Browns defense, then you can certainly put your offense in a good position to win the game, especially if you give Jacoby Brissett and company short fields.
Kevin Stefanski was asked about the secret to defending Baker Mayfield. Here's Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski.
Really good football player, has made a ton of plays, can make plays on schedule, off schedule, ton of arm talent. So we have our work cut out for us. We've seen him make a ton of plays, so we know it's a good football player.
This is going to be an emotional game for him and for your guys to a different degree. How do you make sure that your guys don't get caught up in that this is some kind of a grudge match?
I think for us, Tom, it's Browns versus Panthers. It's pretty simple. We got to prepare for their offense, their defense, their special teams. So that's really where our focus is.
And again, the message has been pretty consistent from the Browns.
Yeah, I get the feeling, if there is any sense, that they're holding this bulletin board material over Baker Mayfield, we're not going to know until after the game. We're not going to know, how they really feel unless they come out with a win and then they say something like, oh, we've been sitting on this for weeks and weeks and weeks. We've been waiting for this for a while. All those typical cliches, all those things that we've seen for so long. They're keeping it under the vest, close to the vest for right now. And I think, Brissett's obviously echoing what Kevin Stefanski was just saying, that they're trying to keep this focus simply on Browns versus Panthers, trying not to make the game any more than it already is. It's already important because it's week one. We just mentioned they haven't started 1-0 since 2004. So the pressure to do that should be seismic enough as it is. It's just, you add in the extra elements. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, going up against his former team, obviously the ultimate storyline, but really only even part of the team can even really think about that. The offense can't think about it because their job has nothing to do with Baker Mayfield necessarily. Their job is to score points on the Carolina Panthers defense. So Jacoby Brissett can't be worried about what Baker Mayfield's doing. And I think, that compartmentalizing is going to be very important. And it seems like that's the approach the Browns are taking, is keep everything quiet. If you're going to use anything Baker has said in the past, you're done as motivation, keep it to yourself and don't let it come out till after the game. Especially if you win. If you lose, that just stays buried pretty much.
Along those lines, Anthony Walker, who was elected one of the Browns' captains earlier today, on what to expect from Baker Mayfield and the Panthers offense.
We lean on our fundamentals, our execution. No matter what they throw at us, we feel like if we execute what we're supposed to do, our jobs, everybody does their 111, we'll be fine.
What are you expecting from Baker on Sunday?
Baker's going to be Baker, man. He's a competitor at the end of the day, and he wants to be great. He's going to compete. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be fun.
What's the first thing you're going to say to him?
What's up, my guy?
You've seen him get overly amped up sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you think he can do that playing you guys, get too amped about playing his former team?
Yeah, I can't speak on that. Like I said, I know he's a great competitor. He's going to come out and be fired up. It'll make the game more exciting.
Do you feel like you know his weaknesses and can exploit them in the defense?
I feel like he does a lot of good things. He does a lot of things well, and that's what we're focusing on. And we're pretty sure that they're going to put him in positions and things that he do well, and we have to be ready to attack that.
We asked a couple of other guys this, so I'll ask you too. Are you kind of carrying around, I'm going to expletive them out as you head into this game and use it a little bit to get your game face on?
I don't need the bulletin board material. He says he didn't say it, whatever. But yeah, we don't need to get riled up. This is the first game of the season of the 2022 season. That's enough fire for us. And anytime we get a chance to go out there and play this game, we're fired up and we're ready to play.
So the answer is yes, we do know what he does not do well, and we will try to force him to do that. Everybody tries to do that.
Yeah, but obviously not everybody has the kind of intimate knowledge of Baker Mayfield that the Browns do. Obviously vice versa. So he'll know obviously certain ways to attack the Browns defense that, they're probably talking about Carolina. It's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways because it can impact both ways. And I know John Johnson was talking earlier in the week where he thinks it's more of an advantage for the Browns because there's 11 of them on defense versus one of him on offense. I'm not sure how this is going to go. And I don't think we're obviously not going to get an answer until maybe at least 2:00, when we get some of the gameplay, when we kind of start to understand what's going on, we can kind of get an idea, who's winning, who looks good, who's struggling or whatever. But, again, it seems like the Browns, at least the guys who have spoken today, really kind of kept the same message. Their focus is just on the game. They're not worried about, bulletin board material. They're not thinking about, trash talk or anything like that. They're just focused on trying to be 1-0. And I think that's, that I think is the right message. That's the right message to take, at least publicly. You don't want to give Baker Mayfield, who certainly can look for reasons to beat you. You don't want to give him anything else to feed on. So just keep it simple. And I think that just needs to be the approach, going forward. Obviously, you look for motivation, but you should be more motivating enough just to try and get the win, especially considering, they're going to have to play these first 11 games, at the very least, the first 11 games without Desean Watson.
Well, Baker Mayfield also talked today, and he talked about facing the Browns and how important the opener is.
But for me, it's the familiarity. Anytime you're playing guys, it makes it just more interesting, more fun. You get to smack talk a little bit with your buddies that you've been with for a little bit, and you know how to poke and prod and get the best out of them. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Do you personally view it as a revenge game?
No, I mean, I'm grateful for the time I had in Cleveland. Like I said, I started my career there. Fans there, football town, obviously, like I've mentioned multiple times, it ended abruptly and, unexpectedly, but we're here now. Everything happens for a reason, and I'm rolling with the punches, and like I said, I'm happy to be a Panther.
Everybody's saying the right things, at least pregame.
At least pregame and at least publicly, they're saying the right things. I mean, we could talk about, the whether Baker said what he said to Cynthia Freeland or not. He says he didn't. We'll never truly know the answer, I don't think. But, I mean, again, Baker's kind of doing the same thing the Browns are doing, is really not trying to give the other side bulletin board material, at least when it comes to, these press conferences. So he's being coached well, at least in that department. We'll kind of see how different he looks in Ben McAdoo's offense in Carolina with Christian McCaffrey and with DJ Moore. Obviously, different skill players to work with. Arguably as good as anybody he's played with in Cleveland. You can argue DJ Moore is probably as talented as any receiver Baker's played with. I'm curious how they're going to look together, and I think it's going to be fascinating, the way Baker gets those two guys involved in the offense.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Anthony Walker. Also take a look, 6 teams that are headed for a rocky road. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns-Panthers game with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Anthony Walker talking about the defense, realizing they need to hit the ground running, can't really ease into it like they did a season ago.
This is a new year for us. We didn't start off well last year, and we want to come out the gates, swinging. And, we took that approach in camp. That was our mindset. That was our focus, was starting fast, and that's our mindset right now.
This is your second year here, so what's different for you or better for you in year 2 versus maybe year 1 is from a comfort level or a fit or whatever?
Yeah, I think just learning the entire defense. I knew a lot last year, but this year really got time to actually get film of myself doing it and dive into the playbook and all that stuff in the off season. So I think that helped me a lot. Like you said, just familiarity with these guys and all the guys in the locker room and the front 7 and the back 7. Spending a lot of time together, being on one page. And I feel like if we do that, that's all we need to do. Like nobody needs to do anything else.
And Tim, that defense can't have the first few games like they did last year. They just can't.
No, not at all. I mean, if this is going to be the time for this defense to really be dominant, it's got to be right away. I mean, the first 4 games of the season sets up for the Browns to really, have favorable matchups when it comes to the defense. I mean, you could argue Baker Mayfield. You could debate whether Baker Mayfield or Mr. Trubisky is going to be the best quarterback the Browns face until week 5 when they host Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So this is obviously an opportunity for this defense to get going and to be strong right away. We saw how they closed last season. Obviously they started poorly a year ago. I think that was obviously part of it was, integrating a lot of new players, particularly, John Johnson, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit, JOK, Anthony Walker, so many new faces they had to mix into that defense, and it took a while for them to figure it out. And it seemed like when they did, that's when the group really started to take off. They need them to kind of hit the ground running right away. Best way to do that is for Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney to really cause some havoc up front, get a couple sacks, make Baker Mayfield uncomfortable, get him with some happy feet, and see if you can force a turnover too. If you could do that, then I think, that's going to make everybody else's job on defense much easier. It starts with that front four and their ability to get pressure and Joe Woods' ability to dial up pressure maybe more than he usually does.
All right, 6 NFL teams headed for the bumpiest seasons from CBSSports.com. So they have the Giants, Falcons, Texans, Bears, Browns, and Patriots. If you win games in the trenches, Cleveland set up nicely. Starting offensive line, really good. Garrett, Clowney pairing defensive edges. They get to quarterback play matters, and they're poised to get passable production there at best. 64% of their schedule in a tough division. Interim number 1, Jacoby Brissett, can lean on the run, but what happens in a shootout? And my answer to that is I don't think the Browns win too many shootouts with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback.
Not right now. No, they don't. I mean, can Jacoby keep up with some of these quarterbacks? Maybe once in a while he certainly can, but he's, again, the type of quarterback who's going to need his skill players to really carry him. He's going to need the offensive line in front of him to play well, and then he's going to have to kind of be the point guard to let these guys do their thing, which means, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, the running backs are going to have to step up and have some nice moments. You're going to need Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell to make some leaps. You're going to need Anthony Schwartz to kind of create some confidence for himself and be able to hit a big play or two when called upon to do so. It's going to be incumbent on a lot of the guys around Brissett to do their jobs and do them well and to really elevate the quarterback more so than the other way around when Deshaun Watson's able to play, because he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's the kind of guy who can elevate everybody else around him. So for these 11 games, the other guys on this offense are going to need to pick up the slack. It's not an easy thing to do in the NFL when some of these quarterbacks are just so talented that they could win games basically by themselves. And this game is definitely leans more towards having those quarterbacks and those guys being the difference makers. If your quarterback's more the stopgap guy who needs help to win, it's not nearly as easy, and you really need the rest of your team to play well in those circumstances.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, Tim, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy week 1.
All right, Tim Bielik. Make sure you read them, pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a timeout. Other side of the break, it is Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. We're talking Browns-Panthers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns, getting ready to face the Carolina Panthers. Want to remind you, we want to hear what you think. Let us know what you think's going to happen week 1. Voicemail of Truth and Reason. You see the number scrolling by there as well. Want to know who you think's going to win. What do you think some keys are going to be? Mike Florio from Chris Sims' Unbuttoned podcast with his prediction from week 1 of the Browns-Panthers game.
I go Carolina 27-21. This is one of those where when I look at the spread, I just say, man, only 2.5. The Panthers are healthy. We know how good they are when they're healthy. Christian McCaffrey, healthy, changes everything. Defense, healthy, changes everything. Mayfield, pissed off, motivated, focused, healthy. I'm not worried about him being too emotional. I'm not. I think he's going to be old school Oklahoma, grabbing his junk, planting a flag Baker Mayfield with a chip on his shoulder and a boot up the ass of the Cleveland Browns. 27-21, and it may be worse than that. I'm careful with my score picks early. We never pick blowouts, but we know blowouts happen. Could this be a blowout? It very well could be. The Browns have been through a lot of crap.
Yes, they have.
This offseason. And this is the worst place for them to start because Mayfield is out to get them, and I think he will.
Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. Jeff, the national sentiment seems to be that the Panthers are going to win.
I got a couple of issues with this right off the bat. The first one is every time people talk about the Cleveland Browns, nobody talks about their defense. The Carolina Panthers are going to drop 27 on the Cleveland Browns in week 1. The Cleveland Browns have Myles Garrett. They have Jadeveon Clowney. The Carolina Panthers are, and look, he's a good player, Ike Ekonwu. But this is his first career start against Myles Garrett. So good luck with that, young man. The other thing is the disrespect just overall to the defense. This team held 9 teams under 16 points last year. All of a sudden, we think the Carolina Panthers are a team that's going to drop 27 on them. And we got into this a little bit, in a couple episodes here recently. If the Browns are going to face Baker Mayfield, you want to do this now. You don't want to do this in October. You don't want to do this in November. You want to do this while he's still green to the offense. He's still green to his skilled players around him. And look, whatever pundit it may be, and I know the way the predictions are looking right now, for me, I have a hard time believing this. Everybody just thinks like the Cleveland Browns right now are some wounded dog due to the actions and due to the fact that this team went out and acquired Desean Watson. None of this changes the fact that Myles Garrett is still an excellent player. None of this changes the fact that Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the game. I love that the Cleveland Browns today announced captains for the first time during the Stefanski administration, because what they needed to do and what the statement that is they made by that is this is how you conduct yourself if you're a member of this organization. And they put the C's on the appropriate players who define what this organization is. Everybody who thinks that this team basically has got 2 flat tires and smoke coming from out under the hood on the side of the road, I'm sorry, it is way too premature to think that this team is going to be, struggle right out the gate. I have a hard time believing this.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I really like the secondary. I think cornerbacks and safeties are really, really good on this football team as well. Well, Anthony Walker, one of the guys who will be a captain with a C on his chest, talked about the national media's perception of the 2022 Browns.
The mentality that you have to have, great teams don't worry about the outside noise. I was always taught that, when you worry about the outside noise, you start to get distractions and everything like that. We need to worry about what's in here. And with everybody writing you off, all you can do is turn inside and internally, and that's what we have to do. The day-to-day for me, I think just the preparation that goes into the week, focusing on that, focusing when I'm in the building, I'm in the building. When I'm home, with family or whatever it is, I'm at home. And again, we have cell phones, we have social media, so we all, social media, text messages, whatever it is, we are going to get the noise, but it's how you respond to the noise. And, again, you can, sit there and I can argue with people all day on Twitter, or I could just ignore them, and I'm choosing to do the latter.
And Jeff, it sounds like it's pissing them off a little bit, which is good. That's kind of what you want.
For me, I totally agree. Because, one thing, and I think we've talked about this just a little bit, Dave, was the fact that this roster is consisted of 52 other players, none of whom are Deshaun Watson, none of whom have issues like this off the field. This is, for the most part, this Browns roster is a solid group of young men. They represent this team. They represent this city with class and honor. They do charitable events. They throw charitable events. They don't just show up to them. They literally throw them themselves. So everybody, you can keep doing it. And look, I understand the lightning rod that Deshaun Watson is. And it's kind of funny because not much has changed as far as Cleveland Browns and the media. It just, you substituted out Baker Mayfield and you substituted in Deshaun Watson. Look, if you all want to get your jokes off, and this is exactly what, I think the media wants to do, but I think that as far as the overall coverage of this team and what it consists of and the players they are, and I think Walker made a great point. One of the best parts about this is there were certain players who let this stuff distract them. One of them is now the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. One of them was a wide receiver that just won a Super Bowl with the Rams. One of them at times is now a wide receiver plays with the New Orleans Saints. There are no guys who do this anymore. Nick Chubb was asked today, what do you think Baker's going to do next? Baker's going to do. I know Baker really well. I don't know what Baker's going to do. Pretty much the way of it. It seems the same issues that people have with the Cleveland Browns don't necessarily consist with players who are still with the Cleveland Browns.
How important is it to, and I know you've kind of addressed this one, Browns need to understand they're not playing Baker Mayfield, they're playing the Panthers.
The Browns need to go out there and find a way to win this game, because what they need to do is they need to understand, can we truly do well enough over 11-game stretch that when Deshaun Watson comes back, will there be something left to play for? Will there be something left to fight for? And these first 4 games, which consist of Carolina, the Jets game, which now looks a lot easier when you get Joe Flacco and maybe not Zach Wilson, Pittsburgh Steelers, right now Mitchell Trubisky's a quarterback, Atlanta. Those first 4 games are key. Number 1, it's going to establish confidence. You do well, 3-1, 4-0 in those first 4 games. Once the bigger, better teams start showing up on the schedule, you're going to know whether or not this team feels within themselves, within the locker room, that they are able to play with these teams with Jacoby Brissett. This is a tone, and none of this really necessarily has to do with Baker Mayfield. The tone is we need to win because we have to play a lot better teams, so we can't afford to lose to any of the lesser teams that are on our schedule in this first 11 games. This is a big one. It's a tone setter, and a lot of it doesn't have to do with Baker Mayfield. It doesn't. It just has to do with the fact that this team doesn't normally win week 1. You played Kansas City last year on the road. The week before you played Baltimore on the those are difficult matchups to have. So the Browns need to go into Carolina and get this one handled.
What about Jack Conklin? Do you think he plays? If not, who plays in his spot? How important is it?
This is actually an interesting one, and I kind of I'm just thinking back in my mind. We were in a similar spot last year with the Browns and Odell Beckham Jr. at the same time. Everybody, we heard positives Odell over the summer, and then as we got closer to the weekend, all of a sudden they weren't necessarily sure if Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't going to play right away, and he didn't make his debut until week 3. Jack Conklin, same kind of thing. And look, if you're looking at it under an analytic lens, it's 18 weeks of football. That is a long, long time. Jack doing some things in individual drills. So the question is, are we going down that same path? Because the Browns are definitely a team where even if the player says, I'm good enough, the Browns during Stefanski era and the Barry era have said, you know what? All right, next week, you're our guy. We're going to take one more. We're going to make absolutely sure of this. So I'm not sure necessarily that Jack Conklin is going to play Sunday. You look at maybe a player like Chris Hubbard, he'd probably be the first one up. Kind of forgotten, as he got hurt last year, kind of forgotten that he even re-signed. So he's here. But the Browns did make an interesting signing over the weekend in Joe Haeg. Out of North Dakota State, played with Carson Wentz at North Dakota State, has a great athletic profile. Certainly matches well to a wide zone scheme as far as what you would look for from a right tackle. He's athletic. He plays well in space. He gets to the players he has to block quickly. Long arms, good extension. I think he is the guy, and maybe there's a possibility he's a starting right tackle for this team going further as the Browns sign him to a longer than one-year deal, or he could become the new swing guy, Chris Hubbard-like, who can play several roles on this team. But the Joe Haeg signing, and he does have some familiarity with this. Maybe there's a chance for playing time for him on Sunday. But I got to think, if just looking at the way the tea leaves went last year for Odell, I think it's going to maybe fall where the Browns are going to feel safer to not play Jack Conklin week 1.
Yeah, and you're right. 18 weeks, you're going to need him. You want him for more games as opposed to less. So
nobody's lacking on reps right now. So for anybody to have to jump in and start week 1, they're ready to go. If it's week 3, it's week 4, it's a little bit of a different story.
Yep, I got you. Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll talk a little bit about Jacoby Brissett, head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason a couple of times. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Jeff Lloyd and I from the Locked On Browns podcast continue talking Browns. Want you to leave us your voicemails. Tell us what you think is going to happen. We want predictions for Week 1 against the Panthers. Who's going to have a big game? What's going to be the key in Week 1 against the Panthers? All right, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the team and what this viewer sees in 2022.
Hi, this is Randall McKissack, frequent caller, lifelong time Browns fan. As we dawn a new NFL season, I just want to put my prediction out there and see what you guys think. I think the Browns will have a winning season. They'll earn a wild card playoff berth. I'm predicting 10-7. I think Jacoby Brissett can hold it down, and I think if there's an early program for Deshaun Watson to get some rust off, like can he practice with the practice team and all that kind of stuff when he comes back in October just to get the dust off before he get into a regular NFL game? I'm hoping that's the case. But if Deshaun Watson gets to knock that early dust off and get up to 10-7, I think we'll earn a wild card playoff berth. But for next year, I'm predicting that the Browns will win it all. I'm going to put $100 on that as soon as the season starts, and I'm looking forward to showing up for a Super Bowl appearance for the Browns next year. So, love to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Bye.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And Jeff, yeah, they can ladder Deshaun Watson back in as soon as he's allowed to come back to the facility in October. He can practice and he can do various things leading up to that December 4th game. I think 10-7 is possible. I don't know that it's likely, but it's possible.
I'm not ready to really cement it one way or the other right now. It's really difficult. And part of it is because we didn't really get to see enough of Jacoby Brissett. And the little bit we did get to see of Jacoby Brissett, he was limited as far as what he was working with. He was not working with a first-string offensive line, was not working with top skill talent. So you certainly have some questions there. The key with Jacoby Brissett, and nobody wants to talk about it, is he does not turn the ball over. I mean, some of the actions today, as far as Baker Mayfield, one thing we know about Baker Mayfield, he's always turned the ball over. Even in his good runs with the Browns, he turned the ball over. Jacoby Brissett, he will not do it, has a history of not doing it. So even though he doesn't have agility, even though he might take a sack that you regret, it's a heck of a lot better than forcing a throw, causing interception, and giving a team better field position. And it's also being intelligent enough to understand that you have a defense that's going to be top 5. So if you didn't get it done this drive, most likely your defense is going to shut him down and you'll get a shot next drive. It's about playing smart. It's about playing concise. It's about playing within yourselves and knowing your own capabilities. And Jacoby Brissett, he's made a history of that to this point. No one's telling him he's got to go out there and go throw for throw with Justin Herbert, or he's got to go throw for throw against Tom Brady. The Browns roster is built and it's balanced. If everybody else does what they're supposed to do and Jacoby Brissett just doesn't lose the games, the Browns should win more than they lose.
Yeah, and again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. What are some of the keys when you look at it? How important are the starts to these games, do you think?
The keys are huge because, you've got to get out of the gate. This team's got to build some confidence because, look, we are talking about several people on offense and big players in Amari Cooper and Jacoby Brissett who we have, no clue of as far as, their work with the Coach Stefanski offense. We're still concerned about what's going to come of the defensive tackles. Look, there wasn't even much attempted to chase in free agency. So I think the Browns, I'm not saying they're content with the guys they have. I think they're content with giving the guys they have at defensive tackle an opportunity. But look, you said the secondary. The secondary is deep. It's Denzel Ward. It's Greg Newsome. We loved what we've seen of Martin Emerson. Grant Delpit played like a rock star about the last 6 games of last year. This guy was, drafted, was a highly regarded player. John Johnson III, has talked about the fact that it's a lot easier for him to play and practice right now because all the newness is gone. He understands all the guys that he works with, their tendencies, what they like to do. So it allows him to be more free to roam and react, which made him such a great free agent signing from his time with the Rams. So getting out early, smart, setting the tone. And look, these guys are all good ball players. I mean, it's a great semblance of great talent. And I think they just need to understand that, I don't have to do, I don't have to move the earth types of things. If I do what is asked of me, I know everybody else is going to do what's asked of them. At the end of the day, it should be the recipe, for close games and games that you should be able to pull out.
Yeah, and offensively, try to stay out of second and third and long. Don't ask Jacoby Brissett to make an explosive play. Let him be who he is. I think that's a key too. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one with a couple of questions about some veteran guys.
Hey, Dave, great show as always. Frank from Cleveland. Why don't Andrew Berry go out and say Sheldon Richardson and Sue to 1-year deals? We got the money to do it, the cap space. Problem solved. Man, we're going to get run over in this first game with Christian McCaffrey. Guaranteed. Great show again, once again, Dave.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. I think there's two parts to that, Jeff. Number one, they want to roll some of that cap over. And number two, I think it's after week 1, veteran contracts aren't guaranteed. So the smart thing to do, which our front office has done, is kind of to wait until after week 1 with some of these veteran contracts.
Well, I mean, there's also a couple other aspects of it here. If, Sheldon Richardson and Ndamukong Suh were the world beaters that they once were, they'd be somewhere right now. Somebody would say, you know what, I'll give you the guaranteed money. I will pay you. I mean, so if they were bringing that much to the table, they wouldn't be options right now. And the other thing is with, Christian McCaffrey, it's not so much, Christian McCaffrey's going to run you over. He's going to go outside you. He's going to catch every ball thrown to him. He's going to catch every check down. And that's the way he's going to beat you. The defensive tackles is not going to be why Christian McCaffrey, could be a difference in the Browns losing. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Walker, Phillips, not being able to run with him, not being able to tackle him. That would be the reason Christian McCaffrey gave you difficulties, not because of the fact that you didn't sign 2 mid-30-year-old defensive tackles.
Yeah, and you know what? The Browns defense, more so this year than in years past, is equipped to defend a guy like Christian McCaffrey. So, I agree.
Well, and just the one last thing with McCaffrey is we don't really know what Christian McCaffrey is anymore. He's at that weird running back age where things start to fall off. And I'm not saying he is or he isn't there. But, there's not much of a history of Christian McCaffrey recently in the NFL that we know whether, he's just going to come back. And the other thing is why has he missed time? Because of injuries. They add up. They take years off you. They take ability off you. So everyone, I think, just thinks Christian McCaffrey is plug and play like this is Madden. He's going to go out there and be the guy he always has been. Well, until we see it, we have no way of knowing it.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast tonight. Going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Kevin Stefanski will talk a little bit about Christian McCaffrey. Also take a look at some trade ideas. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Kevin Stefanski asked about Christian McCaffrey, who is ready to go for the Panthers.
He can do it all, Chris. He's so versatile. He runs. He can run downhill. He can run on the perimeter. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. You can line him up a wide receiver. There's really not much he can't do. He's just a really, really good football player.
And, Jeff, in fairness to the Panthers, last year when he was healthy early in the year, they played pretty well. But then, again, second year in a row where the injuries added up and he was not able to get on the field.
I agree, but and we're talking. The Browns saw him last in 2018. He gave them a field day that day. Joe Schobert, a Browns linebacker that I loved. It was just a match that the Browns didn't have an answer for. He's just that quick. He is just that fast. But if you're the Browns, you go into us and guess what you say? So you want to know what? We don't play a lot of man, but you want to know what? Maybe we will, because my goal, my focus is to do one thing and one thing only: make sure Christian McCaffrey doesn't beat us. Nobody knows Baker Mayfield better than anybody in Carolina, than in the Cleveland locker room. Carolina doesn't know him that well yet. Does Joe Woods know him? Does Kevin Stefanski know him? Do the Browns know him very well? But we'll see with Christian McCaffrey. And part of it, and where McCaffrey has been so great, is that you can do so many things that look similar. You can run off-tackle plays with him. Don't hand it to him, but then throw it to him on the same type of off-tackle look. Christian McCaffrey is a very, very good player. But like you mentioned, and I've said several times on my own show, is the Browns have tried to build a defense with young, versatile, hybrid defenders who can cover running backs, who can run with tight ends, who can play the pass, who can play the run. And so for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, this is a big step, because this is basically, it's Notre Dame versus Stanford, one of the big rivalries for both of those guys. And Jay, okay, go find him, drop him to the ground 6-7 times. This is on you.
Yeah, and you know what? I like our chances with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah a whole lot more than anybody else they've had playing linebacker in the recent history. This one's from the Bleacher Report. 2022 NFL trade block big board. So Kareem Hunt, and they have the best fits, Falcons and Rams. For now, the likelihood of the Browns trading Kareem Hunt remains relatively low. If it becomes clear that the Browns can't contend in 2022, they could be more inclined to part with the 2023 free agent. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Kareem Hunt. If Kareem Hunt has said he wants to come back, I don't know that the Browns can find a way to pay him what he would likely get somewhere else. That's going to be the key. Can they find money that works both ways?
I don't think the Browns have any intention of bringing Kareem Hunt back. They know it. Kareem Hunt knows it. I think everybody knows. Once Nick Chubb got his contract extension, that was the extent of the amount of money the Browns were willing to give to any running back. Does that mean he's not important for this team in 2022? Oh, absolutely not. They know he is their third best skill player on offense. And when you're missing Deshaun Watson for 11 games, the last thing you're going to do is say, oh, well, let's move on from somebody who can give us production either A, as a receiver, or B, as a rusher. Now, if things do not go very well, and we slowly get into October, closer to Halloween, when usually the NFL trade deadline is, and you look at where the team is then, yeah, but a team like the Falcons, they're a team that's not going anywhere this year, so I doubt and Atlanta would be interested. A team like the Rams, yeah, we've seen this move with Odell. We've seen this move with Von Miller. This is something contenders would do and would certainly be all over. But for Kareem, look, if Kareem goes out and balls out this year, that means the Browns are most likely going to be a good team. That means most likely that Kareem is going to put up really good numbers. That means Kareem is going to find a really, really good job in the offseason. But, any allure of trading Kareem Hunt right now is not there for the Browns. They understand how important he is, and they know with him missing 9 games last year how crucial that was and the difference that made in several close losses last season.
Yeah, he is a threat in the red zone, and you're absolutely right. If he goes out and plays like he's capable of, he will have a nice payday waiting for him on the other end next season. All right, before I let you go, this one is kind of a head-scratcher. The biggest question for every team in the 2022 NFL season, this is from Touchdown Wire, will the Deshaun Watson decision blow up the entire franchise for the Browns? Jeff, I believe this. If you would have told the Browns he's going to miss 11 games, and I don't think they thought he was going to miss that many, I think they still make the trade. I think that's how hard it is to find a franchise-level quarterback that the Browns have been seeking. So I think they're just trying to get through the 11 until they get him back.
Well, I mean, the first thing is it going to blow up the franchise? What are we going to knock all the Lombardis off the shelves? I mean, what exactly are we ruining here? Look, this is a move you had to make. Look, I mean, people can pick on this morally all day long. And look, I understand it. I'm a father. I truly get it. I do. But, is much different in the world as far as, selling your soul for business to make money. And that is what an NFL franchise is. And the only thing basically eluding the Haslams was the fact that they felt that they did not have that quarterback who was a top 5 talent, who could go play against a Patrick Mahomes, who could go play against a Josh Allen, who could compete with a Tom Brady. Maybe if they knew it was 11 games, it wouldn't have cost them $238 million. Maybe it wouldn't have cost them 3 first-round picks. But they would not have hesitated. They would not have blinked their eyes. They would have still made this move.
I agree wholeheartedly. And the flip side of it is, if you're Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry, if you don't start winning, you don't hold head coaching and general manager jobs in the NFL for very long anymore.
No, and honestly, one of the worst things in the world is, your first year, you go to the playoffs, you win Coach of the Year. Your second year, you don't make the playoffs. You have, the incident wasn't pretty with Baker Mayfield all season long with, obviously between the off-field stuff, the interviews, his play, and the overall success of the team. Then you make the move and you bring in this guy, and it just basically goes from, one basically off-field complication to maybe an even more serious one. But you do it with the belief that you are ultimately getting a player that you feel is significantly better. So they already basically, were up to their calves in the mud anyway. So basically they just figured, well, maybe this guy is strong enough and better enough to pull us out of it.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Great stuff. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
All right, Jeff Lloyd, make sure you catch Locked On Browns podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.